Here's your warning sign number 1. You're watching this video because something felt off, didn't it? That nagging feeling in your gut that you ignored for months, maybe years. Well, congratulations. Your instincts were probably right, and I'm about to walk you through the psychological playbook that nearly destroyed my life. I dated a psychopath for 2 years. Not someone who was just selfish or mean, but an actual, clinical-level manipulator who turned my brain into their personal entertainment system. And before you roll your eyes thinking this is another dramatic breakup story, let me stop you right there. This isn't about hurt feelings or compatibility issues. This is about predatory behavior that follows a script so precise, it's almost boring in its predictability. The scariest part? I'm educated in psychology. I should have known better. But here's what they don't teach you in textbooks. When you're the target, your brain becomes their playground, and all that knowledge becomes useless noise. So how does someone with a psychology background fall for a textbook psychopath? Simple. Because psychopaths don't walk around wearing name tags. They're not the obvious villains from movies. They're charming, successful, and they study you like a science project until they know exactly which buttons to push. Let's start with love bombing, because this is where most people get trapped. Picture this. You meet someone who seems almost too good to be true. They're incredibly attentive, they remember every detail you share, they make you feel like the most fascinating person alive. Within weeks, they're talking about your future together, how you're different from everyone else they've dated, how they've never felt this way before. Sounds romantic, right? Wrong. It's psychological warfare disguised as affection. Here's what's actually happening in their brain during love bombing. Research shows that psychopaths have significantly reduced activity in their amygdala, the brain region responsible for fear and emotional processing. This means they can manufacture intense emotions without actually feeling them. They're not falling in love with you, they're performing love at you. The love bombing phase serves one purpose: to create what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. They flood your system with dopamine and oxytocin, literally rewiring your brain to crave their attention. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. You're not addicted to them, you're addicted to the chemical high they've trained your brain to associate with their presence. My psychopath did this masterfully. 3 weeks in, they were already planning our vacation 6 months out. They bought me expensive gifts, wrote me poetry, and somehow made me feel like I was the only person who truly understood them. Red flag? Absolutely. But when you're drowning in artificial intimacy, your critical thinking shuts down faster than a laptop with a dead battery. Warning sign number 2. They have no real friends, only admirers or enemies. This one's subtle because psychopaths are often charismatic and socially successful. But look closer. Their relationships are transactional. They don't have people they've known for years who call them just to chat. They have networking contacts, people they impress at parties, and a rotating cast of acquaintances who serve specific purposes. When I met their friends, I realized they weren't really friends at all. They were either people who could do something for them professionally or people who worshiped them from a distance. No one had stories about vulnerable moments or genuine connection. Every relationship was performed, not lived. Here's the psychology behind this. Psychopaths lack the neural architecture for genuine empathy. Brain imaging studies show they have reduced gray matter in areas responsible for emotional processing and moral reasoning. They literally cannot form the deep, reciprocal bonds that characterize healthy friendships. Instead, they create what researchers call pseudo-relationships, based on manipulation and utility. This brings us to warning sign number 3, emotional vampirism disguised as deep conversation. Psychopaths are experts at getting you to reveal your deepest fears, traumas, and insecurities. They position themselves as the only person who truly gets you, the only one you can be vulnerable with. But they're not collecting this information to connect with you. They're collecting it to control you. Every intimate detail you share becomes ammunition for later use. That childhood trauma you confided, they'll use it to explain away their cruel behavior. Those insecurities you revealed, they'll subtly reinforce them to keep you dependent. That dream you shared, they'll dangle it like a carrot to keep you chasing their approval. The psychological term for this is emotional parasitism. They feed off your emotional energy while giving nothing genuine in return. You'll notice you always feel drained after deep conversations with them, not fulfilled. That's because you're pouring your authentic self into a black hole. Warning sign number 4. Gaslighting so subtle you start questioning your own memory. This isn't the obvious denying reality that people think of when they hear gaslighting. This is surgical precision, psychological manipulation that makes you doubt your own perceptions. They'll tell a story slightly differently each time until you're not sure what actually happened. They'll claim you said things you never said, or deny conversations that definitely occurred. They'll reframe your reactions to their behavior as evidence of your emotional instability. Here's what's happening neurologically. Chronic gaslighting literally rewires your brain. Studies show that sustained psychological manipulation can shrink the hippocampus, the area responsible for memory formation, while enlarging the amygdala, increasing anxiety and fear responses. Your brain adapts to survive in an environment of constant uncertainty by becoming hypervigilant and self-doubting. I started keeping a journal because I couldn't trust my own memory anymore. When I read back through it months later, the pattern was undeniable. But in real time, each incident seemed small, each doubt seemed reasonable. That's the insidious genius of psychological manipulation. It happens incrementally until you're completely disoriented. Warning sign number 5. They create chaos, then position themselves as your sanctuary. Psychopaths are masters of manufactured crisis. They'll create problems, start fights, or engineer dramatic situations, then swoop in as your protector and problem solver. This creates what psychologists call trauma bonding, where you become psychologically attached to the source of your stress. The cycle is predictable. Tension building, explosive incident, honeymoon phase, calm before the next storm. Your nervous system gets addicted to this cycle because the relief phase feels so intense after the chaos. You start associating them with safety, even though they're the source of danger. This is why leaving feels impossible, even when you know you should. Your brain has been conditioned to see them as your lifeline, not your anchor. Breaking trauma bonds requires understanding that the person creating your storms cannot be your shelter. So how did I finally escape? It wasn't through logic or education or making pros and cons lists. It was through one moment of absolute clarity when I saw them for what they really were. Not the person they pretended to be, not the potential they dangled in front of me, but the empty performance they actually were. I realized I had been in love with a fiction, grieving a person who never existed. The real them was just a collection of learned behaviors designed to extract what they needed from me. Once I saw the puppet strings, I couldn't unsee them. Recovery isn't just about leaving. It's about rebuilding your ability to trust your own perceptions. It's about understanding that your empathy was weaponized against you, and that recognizing manipulation doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you wise. If you're watching this and something resonates, trust that feeling. Your intuition isn't broken. It's been systematically dismantled, but it can be rebuilt. You can learn to recognize authentic connection versus performed intimacy. You can rebuild your sense of reality. The most important thing I learned? Healthy love doesn't require you to question your sanity. Real connection doesn't leave you exhausted and confused, and anyone who makes you doubt your own mind is someone you need to run from, not toward. Your psychological freedom is worth more than any relationship. Remember that.